Welcome back to Reynolds Runabouts, everybody. I'm Jeffrey Reynolds, and today I am applying the fourth coat of epoxy to this boat deck, and the first one that goes over the white lines. And like I've said in the past, I'm using this technique to bury the white lines in epoxy so that they will be protected um, from abuse and accidental scratches and things that will cause havoc. Also, I'm giving the deck just another coat of um, epoxy. Well, I'll be putting on 3 today. Again, 1, 2, 3, to give it even more protection. But the primary reason, obviously, is to protect the white lines. So I'm going to keep doing this. You remember from the last video where I did this, or 2 videos ago, and it isn't going to be much different. Just in fact, there's only just the fact that there's white lines now on the deck. So I'm just going to keep doing this, pulling the tip of my paintbrush over the deck to get the bubbles to pop and kind of smooth it out. And I'll do this 1, 2, 3. So coats 4, 5, and 6 will be on by the end of the day. And then the following day, I'm going to sand it out. So I'm going to get back at doing this, and I'll check back a little bit later. So to reiterate why I'm doing what I'm doing here, is there too much epoxy for one boat? Well, the whole idea here is to protect those white lines. And after I get the third coat of this batch, or number 6, it will allow me to sand pretty freely to get this flat. And so what will happen is the deck will be flat for um, varnish. And it also allows me to do this without um, turning the white lines amber or yellow, slightly yellow. This high performance epoxy from TotalBoat, and West Marine or West System, West System makes this too, with equal. I've never used their high performance, but I have not had any issues with the TotalBoat version, which is a little bit cheaper. Um, but overall, you could use either one. Um, so yeah, it'll protect the lines. It'll give me a really good base for my varnish. The white lines won't get yellow, which is why I tried that. When I did that boat before, I wanted something that would allow me to protect it without getting any sort of amber color to the white lines. And even the Pettit's clear and Epifanes or Epifanes also makes a clear. There's always a little tint there. So I thought the less I put on with tint, meaning the high performance epoxy, the better. Because this will probably get maybe 2 coats or 3 coats up of the Epifanes in the end. So I won't need much more protection. I'll have the beauty of the white lines pretty deep and protected, and I'll be a lot happier. The surface will be dead flat even with the lines on it, and that will allow me to do some sanding and not have to worry about punching through. And with the 2-part Epifanes, it's almost like epoxy. It's 2-part. It's harder than traditional varnish. Again, it'll last longer. It's got good UV protection. And when things start to go wrong with the varnish from age or weather and sun, there'll be this underneath it, and there'll be the 2-part Epifanes under it to protect it. So you won't have to go very deep to get that first varnish off that is cracking or whatever it's doing. And then you'll be able to just sand it down with a green or a purple Scotch-Brite, and then put your varnish on, whatever varnish you want to use. So this epoxy and the 2-part Epifanes play really well with regular varnish. And I'm going to use the Epifanes clear regular varnish at the very end, and that will hopefully the family will match pretty well. I used it before and I was really happy with it. So I'm going to let this dry and come back in 3 hours and put on 2. So this is coat number 3 on this application and 6 overall. And in the morning, I will try sanding. And what I do is I just start sanding and I watch very carefully that if I start hitting paint, I stop. Then I know that I've got to probably go back and do just a rub with like a Scotch Brite and then apply more. Because what I want to do is level the deck with the top of the line and hope that the line has like 1 coat of epoxy on it. And that will allow me to get it flat, but also to protect the lines. And then I can go ahead and do the 2-part Epifanes varnish. So I'm going to let that cook for 24 hours and then do some sanding. So it's the next day. I didn't even wait 24 hours. I waited probably 14, and this was ready to go. Yeah, obviously you're thinking, first thing you look on your sandpaper, and I always do it in an area that if it's destroyed, you can fix it. So I didn't get any gumminess. I get some white pilling, but that is probably the epoxy. The epoxy pills on a sanding disc or even paper to a point. So I kept going and found it was fine. So what I do, as you can see, you have a kind of a half and half look. I use the 400 grit because it worked so well last time. And the goal is not to get into these white lines. The goal is to make this surface completely flat. And the reason you can tell is that around the white line, which remember was a thick interlux striping paint, so it's already proud of the deck you had put it on. So the 3 coats of epoxy over 1 day's time should equal about 9 coats of regular varnish, and you don't get the yellowing. So what I do is I float the 400 over my deck with the vacuum on and all that good stuff, and I just look, and if I see a shininess next to the white line, then I know that this is still proud. And that could be that the white line was a little bit thicker in that spot, or the epoxy can still be sanded in that area. There's a really fine line between too much and not enough. So I'm very careful to float and watch. And I go like this, which is, trying to knock down the white line epoxy level. And then if I see areas that are like right here, I'll float it just briefly over that area to get it down where I want it. I have not burned through any. Wouldn't be the worst case. If you burn through the white, you could always go back with your fine line tape and just fix it. Have not had any of that happen. Very happy with that. Yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and just keep sanding this until I like it. And here's I've got some swirlies. And that means I've probably got a piece of epoxy on my sanding disc. I just run my putty knife over it to get those off, and then I'll go back. If this is already done too much, I'll leave it. I'll come back with a piece of sandpaper and get that. So I spend a lot of time looking at the deck when I get done and before the next application of anything, because you're adding layers over mistakes, and if you don't get the mistakes sooner than later, you're burying the mistake under really shiny magnifying surfaces, which it just magnifies everything you've done. So good and bad. So I'm going to continue this side of the boat. Probably going to take me like an hour to do the whole boat. I've already done the hatch and the engine wall pieces. I always start out with those as kind of a, hey, here's a test bed, and I do that. And then once I get this down, then I will clean it and we can start the application of the 2-part Epifanes varnish that I purchased. I'll show you how to do that. Today I am going to put on the Epifanes two-part varnish. It's Epifanes PP Varnish Extra. There's 2 cans. It's a 1-to-1 mix. And this is so you're going to have a varnish that is almost like a polyurethane. So it's going to be a lot stronger than the traditional Pettit's high build. And I will finish this. This goes on clear. Again, trying to keep my white lines white. It's hard. It's very good with epoxy, which we have the last coat of finish on this boat is epoxy, so it will connect well. So I will put 2 to 3 coats of this on until I'm happy, and then I'll sand it back, and then I'll follow up with 2 to 3 coats of the clear Epifanes or Epiphanes varnish that is a single part. So it'll go on. What that will give me again is it'll give me some room between when varnish starts to get old and crack or yellow. I'll be able to see that in the 1-part version of Epiphanes, and then I'll have this below it. So get the UV protection, getting more UV protection from the epoxy, and even more from the clear coat that goes on top. I should be pretty good. So I'm going to just put this, you can do this by weight or volume. I'm going to put it 1-to-1, probably do, oh boy, probably do 6, maybe 6 to 12 ounces. I'll see how it looks in my, can I get it done before it starts to tack up or start to kick. So I'm going to want to make sure I keep that in mind. And then I'll always try to find a line like in the middle or the side to end. These sides, remember, are white paint and a white covering board. I'm going to go over just a bit when I do that, and then I'll sand back when I go to put my fine line tape in to do the white sides and white covering board. I'll kind of blend that in with the sandpaper so there's not a hard ridge. I'm going to go ahead and get this going, and I'm going to roll it on, and I'm going to tip it. This is my experience, and a couple years ago I used this same application onto epoxy plywood deck. Worked out really well. Just roll it on with a foam roller, tip it with a foam brush, and every 2 to 3 hours I can do that. So I'll do that throughout the rest of today, and then tomorrow I'll sand it back and put on start putting the clear coats on for you to see, and that'll be it. So gonna get at it. So that's the first coat that went on in 30 minutes. So just think, the epoxy took longer, I think, because it was, it was getting into the wood and it's thicker. This has, I think, about half of a epoxy consistency. It flows, but you can see the thickness. So that's why I went this way, and then I went with the grain, and I tipped it very lightly with the foam brush to take any bubbles out. And once in a while, I would see a run on a vertical surface like dashboards and back seats. So I was able to pull those runs out. And this is gonna dry really hard. So anytime I can get the drips and waves or anything that I see, I want to get those out. I don't fill the roller up too much. I want enough to get it on there and to move it around and get it on, but I'm not trying to layer it on real thick. This is going to get 2 or 3 coats today. It's going to be perfect base for the clear coat. The white is still showing through quite nicely, and it won't have a huge ridge here when I go to put my white lines on the side and down the middle. I'm trying to keep that ridge down. So I'm going to let this cook for 3 hours, and I'm going to come back and do coat 2. So it's been 3 hours, and this paint, or excuse me, this varnish is dry. It's a quick drying formula. I can't even get a fingernail into it, so it's hard. So I could stop here, but the goal is, like the epoxy, I'm going to put 3 coats on in one day. And while, yeah, it's not as thick as the epoxy, and maybe I could have just put more epoxy on, but at this point, I'm trying to get to UV protection and shiny varnish. It's a different product. Some people polish epoxy clear, like if you look at river tables and countertops, that's polishing epoxy. I believe that this has more UV protection. It has a shinier consistency to it, and the goal is to get it to where it's even flatter than it is now. I'm going to take this down tomorrow with probably 320 grit paper. It'll be dead flat, and I put on those 3 coats of the single part Epifanes clear varnish. It'll be just shiny. It goes on smooth. You don't have to polish it like paint. I mean, you could, but I won't. I'll thin it out and it'll lay on like glass, and I'll be done. So it's just building up products that are familiar with each other and work together well to get a nice, safe varnish coat that looks great, protects the wood, and gives me the ability to come back, 5 years or 10 to do another varnish coat. It just gives you a lot of flexibility. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on. No need to go through another video of that. It's just going to be foam roller, foam brush with a tip. 30 minutes and I'll be done, and then I'll go away for another 3 hours, and then I'll put the third coat on. And so the next time I see you, I will be knocking this back with um, orbital and my paper, and we'll get this flat, and then we'll go put the single part on. So see you in a bit. I'm ready to put on the last 3 coats of, I'm shooting for 3 because I have put epoxy down in 3 coats of the 2-part Epifanes varnish. This is dead flat. You can see there's nothing there, no shiny spots, no ripples. This is what you want. So to put 3 coats of the Epifanes single part clear varnish is the goal. It'll give me the protection I need. It'll give me the shine I need. And I won't have to put 9 to 12 to 20 coats of that on from day one. I've already done all that with 3 coats of epoxy, 3 coats of the Epifanes. I have built up the surface beyond the wood layer and the white line. So I've got a beautiful flat clean surface ready to go. I wiped it down with denatured alcohol to get the dust off and anything. The denatured alcohol allows me to see things. Um, there were some areas where I wasn't sure of, and it allowed me to see what the varnish was going to look like. So it's a kind of a precursor to what the varnish will show when it's done. So you can catch things before it's too late, like swirls from the sander, maybe a small epoxy bubble that didn't go or something. I was able to find a few, so I'm good. And so I'm going to use the single part. They ask you to break it down with thinner by 25%. Well, that's because you're putting it more than likely on bare wood or maybe over a sealer. I'm not doing any of that. I'm going right to the full percentage. If I do need to thin it because of just the way it flows, I have Epifanes brush thinner I'll use, but I don't remember that being a problem before. I have put that on in the past on the very last coat, and it gives you just a beautiful smooth flow out. So maybe on 3 or 4 I'll do that, but this one I'm just building. This varnish you have to let go for 24 hours to dry, and then you sand it lightly between each coat, and it really gives you a pretty good idea that you're ready to just call it quits, because you get 3 or 4 coats of varnish on, it's deep enough. If you're going for a river table and want it really deep, then use epoxy. But I'm going for 3 to 4 coats as my target. I'll be done by the end of the week, and then I'll be ready for hardware. And ready for paint. I have to put some paint on the deck. So I'm really eager to get there, and this is going to allow me to do it. All this work that I've done up to this point has made this job the easiest of all. So I'm going to get at that, and it's varnish. I'll give you a couple quick clips of me varnishing, but other than that, it's just varnish going on. So I'll check in a minute. I'm just getting the bubbles out like I always do after rolling. That'll help the varnish pop. So I'm going to keep going and get this thing varnished. When I get to this stage, I always say to myself, treat this one just like it's the last one. And by the time you get to 3 and 4, I'm really happy with what I'm seeing. I'm watching the consistency of the flow, my brush technique, kind of, you can see how this is tipping a little bit. It's pushing it, and I'm lifting at the very ends because you want to get that brush stroke out of there, pop the bubble, but you also want to leave no sign of where your roller started and ended, from everyone before and after. I always do a little overlap. I start in the middle, do a little overlap with the last one, just make sure I've got a nice wet surface, and make sure I go across it a few times, and then rinse and repeat. And by the time I get to number 3 or 4, it's almost like you can do it in your sleep. There I go. You can see a little bit overrun here with where my white stripe's going to be. That's so I don't have a huge drop off shoulder, kind of gradually lighten it in. And as each coat, I'll get a little closer to the line so that that ledge or that shoulder will be pretty non-pronounced. So I'm gonna finish this up, and then I'm gonna go on to the parts. So I'm doing the parts. I'm putting at least 1 coat of this really nice varnish on the interior sides. This is the exception here. I have to do the back side as well. But at least I'll have a really nice shiny coat on even in the interior. So when you take this boat apart. This is the where the engine well is. I've made it so you can take it out and service the bilge pump, and in case the cables break, I can fix them easily. If you've ever had to crawl into one of these little runabouts to fix a steering cable pulley, you know what I mean. So I'm gonna give them at least one coat, and I'm not even sure I'm gonna sand the interior. They're so smooth. They all received 3 coats of the 2-part Epifanes and then were sanded back. But this is not gonna be an area where there's a lot of sun and weather. This is just so when somebody asked to see the inside of the, or to see my removable engine well, that I can be happy to say that the inside looks as good as the exterior. So more than likely this will be it for the interior sides of the hatch and the engine well parts. You know, just I'll always know that they look nice inside, and that's important. So I'm gonna do that. And then part of the reason for that too is I don't want to waste this expensive varnish. 3 coats of it really, when it doesn't need it, it's not going to get sun and wind and rain, and not even people touching it. It's just not going to be worth it. So I would much rather expend this really nice varnish on the exterior surfaces. So that will help speed up this process. So yeah, this is all done now. The boat has been coated with number 1. And I'm gonna let this rest for 24 hours, and I'll come back and I'll start doing the sanding. I'm not even gonna touch this side. There's just too much going on, so I'm gonna go ahead and just make that as part of the top. And then I gotta flip these over too, and I'll put 3 on everything after that. So it'll be out of rotation by a day, but I mean, it's not that big of a deal. So that's it. So that'll conclude this episode. I don't want to bore you with 3 coats of varnish and 2 sanding jobs at least. So thank you for tuning in. If you're not a subscriber, please hit the subscribe button so you're alerted to my videos, which are coming out pretty consistently on the first and third Wednesday of each month in the morning. And if you're liking the videos and finding them entertaining or educational, please hit the like button. It's always nice to receive some positive feedback. And the next time we meet, I will be putting the black on the inside of the combings and the white on the covering boards and down the king plank. So we're getting really close to launch date. Thank you for tuning in.